BYU just stole Baylor's best returning player.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. It is a Wicker Wednesday. We're going to have Sydney Wicker in the last two segments. We're going to talk a little football and some Baylor baseball as well. But the big story is the breaking news that Rob Wright will be transferring to BYU. So we're going to have to cover all that and more on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Yes, this is the first recording of this episode. No rewrites. Don't bother checking. But Rob Wright is going to BYU for a hefty fee. And this time, I'm pretty certain that's where it's going to stick. Okay? My late grandmother used to say, money talks and bovine fecal matter walks. And you see both of those in the case of Rob Wright and this bidding war that has led to him becoming a BYU Cougar for a hefty price of somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5 million. Crazy stuff. And this is definitely the first recording I've had of this episode because this is how it went. This was the saga. If we're being totally honest, I'm just going to be transparent with you guys on how this has gone in my kind of tracking this down. End of last week, Baylor thought they had Rob Wright locked up. They were going to give him over $1 million. He was going to be their point guard next year. He was going to have the keys to the car. Okay. Then in the weekend, all of a sudden, he's in the portal. There's bidding happening. And the first name that came out was Kentucky with Alvin Brooks. That's something I put out there as well. And then on Monday night, I had a source very close to the situation say to me, it's Villanova. Philadelphia, he's a Philadelphia area kid. His dad wants him closer to home. His dad is brokering a deal with Villanova, Kevin Willard, and the numbers on that one were crazy. It was somewhere between $3 and $5 million. And it sounds like Villanova thought they had him as well. But then Tuesday night creeps around and BYU swoops in $3.5 million for him to be the next point guard for Kevin Young in Provo. And this is pure chaos at this point. I mean, we're talking about commitments to several different schools, all of which offering him 7-figure salaries. And all the while, there's not even an agent involved from what we know. He didn't have an agent, hadn't hired one. This is all in the family here. Those were the days, okay? Boy, the way Robert Wright played, because this is all in the Wright family. Rob Wright Jr., his dad, is brokering the deal. He's the guy that they're coming to here that's doing this. And there have been rumors flying around about that for days, and that's been all but confirmed here. I mean, that's been confirmed. And his dad is putting out burner Twitter accounts. But Joe Tipton had it on Tuesday night, but really Ashley Hodge had it first. And as I said on the show last night, I mean, the most connected guy when it comes to Baylor basketball. And he had a very interesting tweet. If you didn't see it in the emergency last night, I'll throw it out there again. He says, all signs pointing to Rob Wright III going to BYU next year. I know tampering is rampant, but a signed contract, ? A different world. So what does that mean? Does that mean Kevin Young had a signed contract from Rob Wright before the portal opened? Does that mean Rob Wright had a contract signed with Baylor for that $1.5 million fee that's been rumored? Is that what this is? Either way, BYU swoops in, and they have made it pretty clear their intent. They are going to spare no expense. They will throw however many $1 million it takes to get the best team money can buy in the transfer portal. Danny Ainge and the rest. The Mormons announced over the weekend they're going to keep building temples. And they're going to need some more revenue if they're going to keep buying players out of the transfer portal like this. Massive news of all the places. You know, it's not TCU, it's not Houston, it's not Tech, but it's in the conference with a fan base and a university we seem to be on good terms with. Not anymore. And they have to come play at the Foster Pavilion next year. And that visiting team's family section is in the Baylor student section. That return is going to make LJ Cryer's homecoming sound like Jonathan Chamwachachua's first game back after the ACL injury. That's what it's going to make it sound like. Make it sound like a tea party, man. This became a bidding war. Baylor, after Rob Wright says I'm going to the portal. So after that $1.5 million deal is eventually turned down after a couple weeks of it being in place, Baylor says, not much more we can do there. Villanova thinks they have him after Baylor thinks they have him, but really it's BYU. And maybe I shouldn't even put this out. Who knows? This could change by the hour here. But Rob Wright, BYU Cougar, gut punch, man. Absolute gut punch for this program. It was a gut punch already that he was leaving. But for it to be a school that's in conference, again, your two biggest losses of the portal era, both in conference, for what's going to be a dangerous program in BYU. Let's keep an eye on those Cougars. Because, look, it's tough not to like the people around BYU. Love Jake Hatch, Locked On Cougars. But they're accused of tampering in football. They've been accused of tampering already in basketball, and now this comes up again with Rob Wright. Where there's smoke, there's some fire. Especially for a program that has already announced we will put millions and millions and millions of dollars into this. We will be bankrolled by the most powerful alums that we have, including the ones that are in basketball, in order to make BYU a dominant basketball program. Get what you pay for, man. $3.5 million is nuts, by the way. Nuts. Rob Wright is a good player. I'm not saying that. I'm not one of those Baylor fans that's like, oh, we don't need him anyway. He's too small. Like, I'm not saying that. I think he's a tremendous player, and I think he could be an All-American next year. But $3.5 million is crazy. Crazy stuff. $1.5 million was a pretty good payday for Rob Wright and for his potential of what he could be next year. But this just gets crazier and crazier. By the hour, Rob Wright, a BYU Cougar. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. We will have Sydney Wicker. We're rolling on with Locked On Baylor. She was at spring football practice, maybe a new leader on the defensive side of things for Baylor football. Check that out. It's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, a word from today's sponsor, which is Supply House. You know it. You love it. We all do. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for you trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use that promo code SH like Supply House and the number 5 for 5% off your first order. That is at supplyhouse.com. Running it back on a Wicker Wednesday here. We've gone over the latest installment of the Rob Wright saga, but now we move on to football because Sydney, if there's one thing that we love as people that cover football, it's getting out to spring football practice. Boy, there's a lot going on. It's very easy to follow. easy to identify the players. It's very easy to understand what's going on, all of that. So you got the privilege to be out there on Saturday trying to track that all down. Boy, can you tell us about the exciting sights and sounds of that Baylor spring football scrimmage?
First of all, thank you for your sarcastic painting of how beautiful spring football truly is.
It's like one of the weirdest things in sports too, because we're so excited for it. It's like a spring game is a little bit easier, but not all that much easier, by the way. And like I did this when covering teams as well. Like you're like, all right, finally, football, it's back. This is fun. And then you're out there and you're like, I don't even know what's going on. Like nobody knows. And of course, the day you're out there, they're doing defensive drills. So there's no great like highlight reel catches or anything. But at least you get to talk to the coaches and the players, right? Like,
I finally got out there, and that was my biggest thing. I was like, I need to go to spring football. I hadn't been yet, traveling from Raleigh a couple weeks ago, and then just being so busy with everything else going on locally. That was my first spring football practice over the weekend, so I'm glad I at least made it out. It was fun. We got to talk to the cornerbacks on Saturday. Yeah, which, the biggest thing that they took away from all of it was just like, we do not want to be the team that we were last year, which thank goodness. I don't think anybody wants that. Yeah. But they just had a lot of like fun energy. And I think it's cool. You got a new coach in that position. You've got a lot of young guys. So it's a really good opportunity to mold this group into what you want it to be. And it helps when you have a nice leader to kind of set the tone.
Wow, look at that, right into it. Because we talked about Caden Jenkins on the show, on Monday's show, and I think he's maybe the most crucial player to this team that is still somewhat of an unknown commodity, right? Like Sawyer Robertson's the most important player to the team, but we know the caliber of player he is. Same with Bryson Washington and Josh Cameron and some of these other guys. But Caden Jenkins, brilliant freshman year, takes a step back last year, might need some help in that defensive backfield. A guy who has not played as many defensive snaps, but has been around a national championship program and will have a ring soon enough. Calvin Simpson-Hunt wins the national championship, basically gets on the plane and moves to Waco. Right afterwards, the Texas native comes in. And again, a guy who didn't play a ton for Ohio State, at least on defense, played plenty of special teams. But it seems like already, Sydney, they are leaning on him to be a leader in that defensive backfield, off the field, but also to take a step on the field.
It's pretty cool that so many of the guys like immediately wanted to hear about his national championship experience. And that's something he talked about. That's something a lot of the guys talked about. And he even said he realized how special it was, but hearing so many guys who haven't been in that position to just pick his brain about it and to really just ask and try to understand what that moment could be like, it made him even more thankful that he got that experience, which I thought was cool. But yeah, as a leader, he seems to have a really, I wouldn't say he's like, I feel like he's kind of, well, maybe he's more vocal. I just didn't get to see that much of him, but he was kind of like quiet, but like you could tell his impact is powerful, which is key. He's the biggest guy in that room. Really? You can tell there's a difference between the Baylor guys and the ones who came from the Big Ten right now. So he's huge.
Okay.
He's huge. Not the tallest, but he's just like, he's built. So I think that's a good asset. But yeah, I'm excited for that room and their growth, and getting to meet Coach Gonzalez for the first time was huge. That was our first time talking to him. He came from TCU, obviously, and now is here. So he talked a little bit about that transition. He was really excited to just say that he was happy to stay in Texas, just with all the moves that coaches make in general. He was thankful to get to stay somewhat close. We kind of were trying to tease him a little bit and pick his brain to see if how he was going to feel about the rivalry and switching teams like this. He didn't really go into it too much, but he says he's happy to be in green. He feels like it suits him a little better.
Yeah, I heard something about bringing out his eyes or something like that. Yeah. The green, it looks great. I've always preferred it to purple, but hey, that's maybe a personal thing. But Paul Gonzalez, so we talk about Calvin Simpson-Hunt coming in with championship experience and being a guy that players can lean on right away. Obviously different role as a coach, but kind of the same thing with Paul Gonzalez. I mean, he was there in the national championship game coaching for TCU a few years ago. Obviously, a kind of one of the right-hand men, if not the right-hand man for Gary Patterson, one of the most successful college football coaches of our lifetime. Gary leaves after a couple of weird months last year as a defensive analyst. His guy comes in to coach the position group that desperately needs improvement for Baylor. And we talked about this, you and I, right after the season ended, really, how important it was for Baylor to make some corrections on the defensive side of the ball, staff, personnel, maybe scheme, all of this, because it kind of comes down to Dave Aranda. Like, he's calling the plays now. And it just seemed, and I watched that interview, obviously you were there, Paul Gonzalez is very comfortable in his role, which I don't know that, for better or for worse, that's been the case for some of the Baylor defensive coaches over the last few years. This guy brings with him a ton of experience, and he's not someone who's gunning automatically for like a defensive coordinator job somewhere else. That's got to be refreshing to be like, this guy is one of the best position coaches that we can get. And he learned under one of the best in Gary Patterson. And now he's here working for Dave Aranda, a guy he said some really nice things about too.
Yeah, you mentioned that he was just like really calm. I would say he's like so cool too. Like, he was really just so comfortable, and like he was in his element. And obviously that was their first practice where they got to like actually tackle, and it was like a full on game like scrimmage. And so just his praise and his comfortableness with the group. I mean, if there was frustrations with how things went in that practice, we would have never known because of how he was. So it makes me kind of think things were pretty good. He did say, it's really hard when you have Sawyer Robertson as your quarterback because there's only so much your defense can do. But it's hey, what better way to get better than with a guy like that?
Iron sharpens iron.
Against. Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, just his comfortability.
You nailed it. You got it. Sound it out.
Word.
You got it. You got it.
Wicker Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. Bear with me. We're making it. It seems contagious, and I think that's going to bleed into this cornerbacks room as well. I'm excited to see how they all buy into it.
And this is something we'll talk about throughout the offseason still, but that's good that they're comfortable because they're going to be thrown into the fire a little bit. Week 1, Auburn. Week 2, SMU. Week 4, Arizona State, who's probably the best passing attack of any of those, right? With Sam Levitt out there in Tempe, like that is a gauntlet right away. And this is where in the college football season you see a team get exposed. Some teams can overcome that; those are the really good ones. But some teams it can break them. There's not the NFL. It's not high school. There's no scrimmage. There's no 3 preseason games. First time you're playing is against the Auburn Tigers, baby. So that is something we're going to have to keep our finger on the pulse on all off season long. But I think my takeaways are largely the same as yours. Like, Paul Gonzalez, the resume speaks for itself. And I think he offered up as well how much he likes the personnel that's already here. He didn't have to offer that up, how much he loves these guys who are already here because they're going to go portal shopping anyway. But this is about as good a guy you could have got for that position. So, something to look forward to for the Baylor football fans as well. But we don't want to get too mixed up with spring football, Sydney, because it is baseball season.
And
after
softball
all.
And track and whatever else you want
and high
to
school
play
soccer
right now. And high school soccer.
But we had some high hopes for Baylor baseball going into the season. We're about a little more than halfway through it. Let's assess where they're at in front of a big road series this weekend. Let's do it next on Locked On Baylor. Sydney Wicker on this Wicker Wednesday, KCEN Channel 6. I think we were the first ones to really talk about Baylor baseball this season. I think it was like a week before the season. We were gung-ho, ready to go. It was a good start for the Bears. They have slipped a little bit lately. They're 21-10, which I'm not going to lie. I've tuned into some losses recently, and so I saw 21-10, and I was like pleasantly surprised. Like, okay, good. But they have lost 3 of their 4 Big 12 series. The only one they won was Arizona on the road, which is super impressive. But they dropped to Kansas. They dropped to Kansas State. And they dropped to Houston over the weekend. Houston played a different sport over the weekend as well. And they beat Baylor 2 out of 3 at Baylor Ballpark. Now it's kind of rubber meets the road time. We're halfway through basically the conference schedule here. You've got a reeling Tech team this weekend, a 9-19 Tech team, not Tim Tadlock's finest work. That's out in Lubbock, a team that desperately needs a series win. Before we get into that, though, Sydney, temperature check, because you've been out to the ballpark. I have not. Temperature check on what we've seen from this team so far?
I think we've seen more than we expected, I think, for a lot of
Okay.
people because, just coming in being like, I can't remember if they were last in the Big 12 or second to last.
Yes, they didn't play in the tournament, the Big 12 tournament.
Okay.
So I think second to last
Second
year
to
and
last.
last the year
Yeah.
before.
But even in the preseason polls, they were like second to last, like not
Yeah.
projected to do anything. I like the confidence that these guys still have. They don't seem to be rattled by the losses, and I think that's why Arizona was such a good series for them to really prove that. They still have some hurdles to get through if they want to finish this season pretty well, but I don't know, I still have faith in this group. They're fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think they've got a lot of fun arms on the mound, a lot of lefties, which has been unique to watch.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not like pumping the brakes or freaking out at anything at this point. I think they've already surpassed a lot of what people expected out of them. And now I hope that they can finish the best that they can. But I think this group still has a lot left in the tank to give.
And I think there is an uphill climb for this program in general, because I don't mean this as like the worst thing ever, but Baylor's not a baseball school. In terms of interest, they've put plenty of guys in the pros and they have a pretty good pedigree. And far be it from me to criticize Baylor fans, because I am a Baylor fan. I make my living off Baylor fans and I love Baylor fans, but we saw some big time, like almost full houses at the beginning of the season. Midweek games were drawing really well. And then they lose a couple series and it maybe isn't the same energy around Baylor ballpark. Are you noticing that too, as someone who's out there with the camera?
Yeah, I haven't seen it fully packed.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I haven't been to as many games as I would have liked to because everything is going on right now. But the ones I have been to, I haven't seen a full ballpark while I've been out there, which is disappointing. That's something Coach Thompson has talked a little bit about. He's like, we want to see it packed. Like, we want to play for you guys. And I think, Scott Drew has talked about that a lot, how much the crowd really does in basketball games. That applies for every sport,
Sure.
like when you have those fans there. So I think they definitely could use a lift of it, but I don't think that's really bothered this team, that they haven't had that either. They've played with what they've had and they do with what they have. And I think they're going to finish the season okay. And I think it's going to set a really good foundation heading into next year. But I like where they're at right now, and I still think there's a lot left to give. Like I said, I wouldn't be freaking out or pumping the brakes or anything like that. But I think they've done more than what a lot of people have expected, and I think they'll finish the season in a good position as well.
And that is kind of the greater point of, like, if you start winning, the crowds will get better. I mean, they had some damn good teams when I was in college and I was out there broadcasting the games, and there weren't a lot of fans there either, but it was much different in 2019 than it was in 2017 when you see that this team can make the tournament, and it used to be a packed house all the time. So I really hope it does get back to that. There's obviously a ton of baseball around there, and it just takes a couple of good series in a row, a couple of exciting games, and it's back to business as usual 6, 7, 8 years ago. Mitch Thompson, the ball is in your court. It has been. And I do like what he's doing. Again, I was pleasantly surprised at 21-10. I see, 3 out of 4 series losses, and I'm like, oh God, like, here we go again. They were baseball, and they did just lose the series to Houston, which they probably shouldn't have, but they're sitting there at 21-10. They're still in a good position in the Big 12. And this is a big opportunity this weekend. Yeah. This is not your slightly older brother's Tech team. This is not an Omaha Tech team. They desperately need a series win. Rip Griffin Park, it gets wild out there. It was really snowing there a couple days ago. So anything can happen out there in Lubbock. If the Bears can take a series out there, or knock on wood, God forbid, a sweep, like that might really change the tenor in the room is what I think about it. So
I agree. And I try not to. Last weekend was tough too. I mean, I know it was Houston and it could have been anybody's ballgame, but it was freaking cold last weekend.
Yeah.
And not that that's an excuse for anything, but I was freezing out at the game on Saturday.
Well, that series you can give a bit of an excuse. That one.
But
I get that.
The rest, I mean, like, if there's any exceptions to be made, I guess I'll let that slide just a little bit.
And look, I was in
contest.
And like I was in Waco the last couple of years. I'm a huge baseball nerd. Like I was not to as many games as I want to. So it's like it's almost like talking to myself in the mirror. Like we need to get behind this team more, I think. And that could go a long way. It really could. We don't want you to go a long way, Sydney, or the fans, because we want to have you on next week, Sydney, and we want you guys making this your first listen today and every day. That's where we are, your team every day. So be sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, or find us wherever you find your podcast. Get involved in the comment section. What do you want to see from this Baylor baseball team? What kind of improvement do you need to see on the defensive side for Baylor football? And of course, what do you think about Villanova? What do you think about 5 million big ones in Rob Wright Jr., maybe the third's bank account this year?
Does
Sydney,
anybody want to give us NIL deals like that? I'll take it.
I ain't saying no. I ain't saying no to 5 million. I ain't saying no to $1.5 million. I ain't saying no to 10% of that, of any of those. Or
should I drop my
anyway.
Venmo in the comments?
I think that's a good plan,
Anyone
actually.
likes to donate
That's
it?
good. Yeah, it's kind of like our own Patreon. We're cutting out the middleman.
There
Oh,
you go.
Sydney, thanks so much for joining. We always love having you on here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Cam, and happy Wicker Wednesday to all who celebrate. Thanks for listening. I always love seeing you guys come up to me at games and stuff. It really means a lot. And so thanks, Cam, for making it easy for me and creating this awesome support group that you have. People listen because of you, and I just joined because it's fun.
Oh, my gosh. I paid her to say that. Yes, happy Wicker Wednesday.
It's part of my NIL deal.
If you see Lil Nas X, Robbie Fowler, Liverpool legend, Dennis Quaid, or Jesse McCartney today, wish them happy birthday. Anyway, get involved in the comment section, like, subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.